What's going on, guys? I've been getting a lot of questions lately about the Frostbitten aspect and Frostfeeder glyph, so today I wanted to quickly cover why I didn't have them in the build and my thoughts on including them in the current state of the build. Before we get into that though, I wanted to thank everyone that has subscribed to the channel. We just recently got over 100 subs and I really appreciate all of the support you guys have been showing. Even if you haven't subbed yet and are still watching or liking the videos, this goes a long way in helping me out, so thank you so much. If you haven't subscribed yet, please consider doing so. It only takes a few clicks and it would really support me and my ability to keep bringing you guys new content. Now, in regards to the Frostbitten aspect and Frostfeeder glyph, the short answer on why I didn't have them in the build is because I was just lazy and didn't really bother trying them out. I've already done so many T100s between last patch and this patch that once I got the build in what I felt was a pretty nice spot for this patch, I started leveling other classes just to freshen up the game for me and bring some variety of content to the channel. However, I did finally get around to trying them, and I would say the results were pretty mixed overall. If you want the TLDR on my thoughts, while Frostbitten is a good aspect, I don't think it is that great in the current version of the build. The Frostfeeder glyph, on the other hand, is actually pretty good, and I think can be used instead of turf if you want. Now, to get into a little bit more detail about Frostbitten, I think the problem with Frostbitten and the current state of the build is that you likely have to drop Shared Misery on the gloves, which is what I did. In doing that, I noticed that I was taking a lot more damage than before. This is because you have a lot less CC uptime due to you not being able to spread the knockdown from Poison Trap, the daze from Smoke Grenade, and the stun from Shadow Step. The other issue is you just don't have enough frozen uptime, meaning you're not even getting the damage boost all the time. You're only really getting the damage boost when you have Cold Imbue up, or you get a frozen proc off Smoke Grenade due to the aspect. In order to get more frozen uptime, you would probably have to run Frostbitten with Shared Misery, which means one of your defensive aspects would have to get dropped. Most likely, you'd also need some other type of grenade effect, like the heart that drops grenades, or an aspect with grenade effects, which means potentially dropping more defensives. I personally like to be a little on the tankier side, so I'm not sure if that's something I would do. But if you guys want to experiment with Frostbitten, that's probably the direction I would go in. I think those were probably the biggest negatives I noticed. As far as the positives go, the aspect is obviously very good for damage. I noticed when Cold Imbue was up, I was definitely bursting elites a lot faster, and there was also a noticeable change in boss damage with this aspect equipped. I would say if you really want to include this aspect in the current version of the build, I would just have a separate pair of gloves to put this on that you would basically just equip only for bosses. As far as the Frostfeeder glyph goes, I tested this with and without Frostbitten, and the results were pretty much the same in either case. It does provide what I would say is a small but noticeable improvement to damage. An example I'll use is having an elite stun locked and bursting it down. Generally, with the turf glyph, I was still able to kill elites in these stun locks, and with Frostfeeder, you'll still be doing that, but probably just a little bit faster. Just to throw some numbers around from what I saw during testing, you'd be looking at an increase from like a 14 million barber crit to probably anywhere from like a 16 to 17 million barber crit. Your boss damage will also be going up a little bit with Frostfeeder, but it's honestly only going to shave off maybe like 10 seconds off a boss kill if I had to guess. The only downsides with running this cliff is that you will be slightly less tanky due to losing the DR on turf, and you'll be doing less damage to anything that can't be crowd controlled. I would say overall this is a pretty good glyph for the build, and if you feel comfortable surviving and don't mind losing the little bit of DR, you can absolutely run this instead of turf. The last thing I wanted to quickly mention is that I have been swapping to close quarters combat for bosses, as this does give you a little bit more damage than precision. All you have to do is save Shadow Step for when the boss gets staggered, and then press it right before the boss is staggered so that you have the damage buff for the whole duration of the stagger. For my testing, I would say the impact of swapping to this key passive will probably save you anywhere from 10 to 20 seconds on a boss kill, so it's not really the end of the world if you don't want to do this. Hopefully that helped answer some of the questions you guys had. In this dungeon you've been watching, I was using Frostfeeder, but not Frostbitten anymore. For now, I'm just going to let the dungeon finish. Thanks again to everyone that has subscribed and is watching the videos. I really appreciate all of the support. Enjoy the rest of the dungeon, and I'll talk to you all soon.